Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
What are you people? We're Americans.
We are Americans indeed. So this is literally hot off the presses. I literally just saw this come across the feed. So here we go, guys. Apparently, Bill Cosby's a free man?
This is a very big deal, a huge deal, a breakthrough as far as Cosby's appeals are concerned. And in my reading of the case, and I just want to be clear, we just got it. The entire opinion runs over 70 pages. We're still digesting it here in the newsroom, but it would appear to set him free, so he'll be released from prison. And it would appear to accept some of the appeals that have been winding through the courts for many years now, and that his defense lawyers had often made that there were aspects of the trial that they argued were unusual, that brought in information and allegations that were not directly germane, or that is to say relevant to that charges that he were convicted of. And at the time, originally, that was considered okay. That was allowed by the judges based on different doctrines, including the similarity between.
Hold on. We got to hear that part again.
Some of the appeals that have been winding through the courts for many years now, and that his defense lawyers had often made that there were aspects of the trial that they argued were unusual, that brought in information and allegations that were not directly germane, or that is to say relevant to that charges that he were convicted of. And at the time, originally, that was considered okay. That was allowed by the judges based on different doctrines, including the similarity between those other allegations and the charges he was convicted of. Here you have the Supreme Court saying no, otherwise. And I think the big question...
This is a Supreme Court, guys. This is not like, some beat judge or whatever you call it. This is a Supreme Court in the state that he's in. He was accused of sexually assaulting Andrea Constand, who was convicted on 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault in 2018 in what was said to be the first trial of the post-Me Too era. Cosby has since refused to admit any culpability, according to Vice. In its decision, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that Cosby's conviction should be overturned on the grounds that a local district attorney, Montgomery County District Attorney Bruce Castor, had previously announced that Cosby would not be prosecuted for Constand's accusation. That announcement, according to the court, was made in order to help Constand win a civil lawsuit against Cosby, which ultimately resulted in a multi-million-dollar settlement for Constand. Wow! So, the judge... That's insane. Let's say this again. The district attorney, Bruce Castor, had previously announced that Cosby would not be prosecuted for Constand's accusation. That announcement, according to the court, was made in order to help Constand win a civil lawsuit against Cosby. Oh my God. Wow. So here we go, guys. Here we go. Here's the legal apparatus. Here we go. So the district attorney is drumming up these charges, or not drumming up charges, to ensure that this girl wins a lawsuit against Bill Cosby. Is that the role of the district attorney? The role of the district attorney is to make sure that a plaintiff wins a civil suit? That's not the role of a district attorney. Like, what in the world? Now, again, that has no bearing on his guilt or his innocence. But again... this is a justice system, and this is a multi-millionaire icon legend that they did that with. And you're saying we don't have a systemic problem in America? Okay. All right. When Cosby was deposed as part of the lawsuit, he never invoked his constitutional right not to incriminate himself because he believed he would never be criminally prosecuted. Later on, Castor's successors didn't feel like they had to abide by his decision not to prosecute, so they went after Cosby. So these guys can't figure out what tactic that they're supposed to take. This is fascinating stuff, guys.
May have is this over? Is this the end? It would appear to be the end, because this is the highest court in the state.
Now, he had served 2 years. He was up for parole in May. and they denied parole in May. It was a 10-year sentence. And according to some of the reporting here from Philadelphia, from the AP that I'm seeing, I know you haven't had a chance to go through this, and neither have I, that part of this overturning of the conviction was based on a prior agreement he had with prosecutors, which said that he could not have even been charged in the case. And recall that this was his second trial after a mistrial. So that conviction came.
So this stuff is just weird, man. I gotta tell you. So now we're saying he's got a deal. He had a deal with the district attorney that they weren't going to prosecute him. What?
Have even been charged in the case. And recall that this was his second trial after.
Hold on.
You haven't had a chance to go through this, and neither have I.
We gotta.
That part of this.
We gotta see this again.
Overturning of the conviction was based on a prior agreement he had with prosecutors, which said that he could not have even been charged in the case. And recall that this was his second trial after a mistrial. So
he made a deal with the prosecutors, and they said, "Yeah, we're not going to charge you," and then they turned around and charged him anyway. What is happening? Like this stuff. It's way too early to speak definitively about it, but it sounds like that is what they said happened. I'm gonna play it again because I can't believe this.
In the case, and recall that this was his second trial after a mistrial. It was based on a prior agreement he had with prosecutors, which said that he could not have even been charged in the case. And
okay, there it is. He had a prior agreement. He wasn't even supposed to be able to be charged with the case.
That this was his second trial after a mistrial. So that conviction came after, the second attempt to convict him by the prosecutors.
Exactly. And these appeals have been winding the courts on two major issues. That issue, which was a alleged prior agreement with Mr. Castor, who was the previous district attorney, and then these issues of what else was brought into the case. And so it's really striking because this was considered at the time by many who follow these kind of cases of sexual assault as a kind of a breakthrough case where things that had fallen by the wayside or not been charged in the past. Indeed, that original agreement that you mentioned, Andrea, was controversial for many reasons, but was considered at the time the kind of lenience or deals that are struck in these cases. This conviction was considered a breakthrough. And so I think for people who followed this case or who saw it as a legal breakthrough for the alleged victims and survivors, this is an incredible blow here from the court.
And again, that district attorney, the former prosecutor, who had been controversial for being too lenient, for letting him off, when it finally got tried for the second time, the victim, Andrea Constant, had been at Temple University, where he was a beloved figure, had, of course, gone to Temple University, was a trustee, I believe, at the time, a very active, alumni, and very active in the Philadelphia and Pennsylvania area. So his influence on that Montgomery County prosecutor potentially is what had been at issue. But as you point out, those were pretrial issues. These were all adjudicated at the lower court levels, I believe, before they were able to even retry him.
Exactly. Those were pretrial issues, and this is a complex, what lawyers call a procedural history. But to the point you raised, Andrea, I'm going to read briefly from this ruling, where the court says, "We have determined Cosby, quote, in fact relied upon D.A. Castor's decision." That's what you and I are discussing, the fact that the prior district attorney, Castor, had apparently made this agreement that this court finds to be valid. They say, quote, "We conclude Cosby's reliance was reasonable, and it was reasonable for D.A. Castor to expect Cosby to rely." And the record establishes, this is the court's view of the record of the factual history, that deprives Cosby of his, quote, Fifth Amendment right, which was D.A. Castor's intended result. And so then they refer to the...
Whoa. Did they just say that in the Supreme Court ruling that the Supreme Court is saying that the judge actively worked to deny Bill Cosby his rights? Again, guys, you know how I usually look stuff up and all the rest of it, but this just recently got published. So let me play that again and see if I'm interpreting that properly, because holy moly.
Fifth Amendment right, which was D.A. Castor's intended result, that deprives Cosby of his, quote, Fifth Amendment right. And the record establishes, this is the court's view of the record of the factual history, that deprives Cosby of his, quote, Fifth Amendment right, which was D.A. Castor's intended result. And so then they refer to the controversy, as you say, and I'll just try to translate this into English. The court is saying that whatever you think of what happened, whatever you think of Mr. Cosby as a defendant, that the government, in this case the district attorney, did extend him this position, and so he relied on it, and that is the reason they would be vacating his conviction.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So the DA essentially tricked him into surrendering his rights. So the DA and him are having a conversation. Yeah, Ben, send this to me because I'm getting this like right off the presses, Ben. So if you have any insight, please let us know. But it looks to me, and you know, I see Bricktown Media is freaking out here, which is honestly the only proper response to this nonsense that we've just heard. So it looks to me like the DA purposely deceived Cosby into surrendering his rights so that they could then pin him to the wall. Holy smokes. That's how I'm interpreting what I just heard. I'm going to play it one more time because I cannot believe it. Guys, I got to do some sort of follow-up or something because this doesn't make any sense. I mean, it makes sense to me in the sense of, you know, what we've been talking about as far as the justice system and how it works with African descended folks. But I got to be honest with you, I haven't really tracked a lot of this stuff. I haven't really been paying attention to the Cosby situation. All I knew is that there were like 5,000 people that were claiming that he had done some Me Too stuff to them. And so there you go. So I have the entire thing right here, the document right here. And yikes. I mean, this is insane. We continue. We continue.
On it, and that is the reason they would be vacating his conviction.
Well, just to reemphasize, that does not.
Okay, so this is Ben Webb's take on it, and it looks like what Ben is saying matches with what the news is saying. I actually agree with the PA court's rulings. He was tricked into ratting on himself. You cannot be compelled to argue against yourself in court. He was essentially denied the fifth. And as further support for the view that no agreement was reached nor any promise extended, the trial court noted that in his initial statement to police, which was voluntarily provided and not under oath, Cosby did not invoke his Fifth Amendment rights. Instead, Cosby presented a narrative of a consensual sexual encounter with Constant, which he asserted again later in his depositions. Thus, the trial court explained, there is nothing to indicate that Cosby's cooperation would cease if a civil case were filed. Since Cosby previously had discussed the incident without invoking his right to remain silent, the court found no reason to believe that Cosby subsequently would do so in a civil case so as to necessitate the remedy that the former district attorney purported to provide in anticipation of that litigation. So, wow. The trial court further held that even if there was a purported grant of immunity, Cosby could not insist upon its enforcement based upon the contractual theory of promissory estoppel because any reliance on a press release as a grant of immunity was unreasonable. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like they tricked the man into basically confessing, right? Like, they said, okay, we got a deal for you, yada, yada, yada. And then off he goes. This is unbelievable. I cannot believe this. I cannot believe this at all. The court further determined that the prior bad acts evidence was admissible to demonstrate that Cosby's actions were not a result of a mistake or accident. to be unfairly prejudicial, the trial court emphasized, the proffered evidence must be unfair and must have a tendency to suggest decision on an improper basis or to divert the jury's attention away from its duty of weighing the evidence impartially. Evidence will not be prohibited merely because it is harmful to the defendant, and a court is not required to sanitize the trial to eliminate all unpleasant facts. So, wow. Guys, it looks like he's a free man, and it looks like, here's what the Supreme Court says. The Superior Court further opined that there was virtually no evidence in the record that Cosby actually declined to assert his Fifth Amendment rights at the civil deposition based on Mr. Castor's purported promise not to prosecute. So again, this is the official document. I'm going to paste it right here so that you guys can see it. It looks to me that the DA promised Cosby, we're not going to prosecute you. Just give us a statement. Cosby complied, didn't invoke the Fifth because the DA basically made a deal with him. It's right there. The Superior Court further opined that there was virtually no evidence in the record that Cosby actually declined to assert his Fifth Amendment rights at the civil deposition based on Mr. Castor's purported promise not to prosecute. Wow. So there it is. The DA pulled a what do you call it? A stunt. The DA pulled a little stunt to get Mr. Cosby to not defend himself completely. And here we are. I cannot believe this, guys. There's a lot of things that are really, really, really questionable here. It really, really is questionable here. It looks to me like that. Wow. Here's what they say. Prosecutors are more than mere participants in our criminal justice system. Prosecutors inhabit three distinct and equally critical roles. They are officers of the court, advocates for victims, and administrators of justice. As the Commonwealth's representatives, prosecutors are duty-bound to pursue equal and impartial justice and to serve the public interest. Their obligation is not merely to convict, but rather to seek justice within the bounds of the law. So here, what they're saying is this prosecutor went above and beyond what he was supposed to do. Like, he was gunning for Bill Cosby, and he did everything. He bent the law to get this conviction because it appears he didn't have enough to get the conviction, so they had to basically deceive Mr. Cosby into not defending himself. Unbelievable. In the context of statements made during guilty plea negotiations, the Supreme Court of the United States has held that as a matter of constitutional due process and as compelled by the principle of fundamental fairness, a defendant generally is entitled to the benefit of assurances made by the prosecutor. So basically, it looks like the court was arguing, yeah, we said that, but like there was nothing in stone, so we can go back on our promise not to prosecute him. What? This court has followed suit with regard to prosecutorial inducements made during the guilty plea process, insisting that such inducements comport with the due process guarantee of fundamental fairness. So, that's what they're saying. Considered together, these authorities obligate courts to hold prosecutors to their word, to enforce promises, to ensure that defendants' decisions are made with a full understanding of the circumstances, and to prevent fraudulent inducements of waivers or one or more constitutional rights. Prosecutors can be bound by their assurances or decisions under principles of contract law or by application of the fundamental fairness considerations that inform and undergird the due process of law. I'm not going to keep reading this, but okay. James says district attorney screwed up. Now a predator walks. James, I don't know how deeply you were following this situation, so I don't have access to the facts. But I don't understand how you can call the man a predator when this came out. right? Like just so that we have clear context here. The district attorney basically promised Bill Cosby that they were not going to prosecute him. So he didn't invoke the fifth, and he didn't do all the things you do when it's time to lawyer up because you know you're going to be in trouble. And so then they turned around and walked it back and then went after him. That is against the law. You can't do that. And for me, I'm like, well, wait a second here. Shouldn't there be some reckoning for that DA? I mean, that is insane. I mean, that is a blatant misuse of the legal apparatus. And I mean, look, to this moment, I don't know, and I don't know how anybody could know Cosby's guilt or innocence or misconduct, you know, the genuineness of her accusation. But Bill Cosby and his accuser were not served in this particular situation, because now the man is scot-free, and I don't think there's a DA on the planet that's going to entertain another one of these things, right? Like, whoo! This is terrible. It's really, I hate this. I hate this for a bunch of reasons. One, I cannot stand, you guys know me, I cannot stand dudes that prey on the weak. I cannot stand people when they use their power of authority and position to garner sexual whatever. So I'm like, put this dude under the jail. I don't care. On the other hand, if his version of the events was true, this is a horrific miscarriage of justice. But I want you to understand something. I want you guys to understand something. When we talk about systemic racism, now listen very closely. I'm not saying that specific DA is a racist and that he went after Bill Cosby because he was black and his accuser was white. Because I'm pretty sure there are other women who accused Cosby and that were all along the color line. I'm not saying that, but here's what I am saying. This DA used his knowledge of the law and the legal apparatus to create a verdict. And he did this to a guy who was close to being a billionaire. So if the DA can do that to one of the most powerful black men in America and succeed in having him in prison for 3 or 4 years, what do you think has been happening to us since the inception of this country? And I don't understand how things like this continually happen and people don't say, wait a second, we got a serious issue here. If you can do that to a billionaire or somebody that's close to being a billionaire, how many people are in prison right now languishing because of tricks like this? And who wants to bet that this is the first time that this particular DA has pulled a stunt like that? You get a guy like Bill Cosby who's got lawyers on retainer. And even he was tricked by it. And Bill Cosby, say what you want about him, he's no slouch. Right? Man. This should really, look, I'm not really, to be honest with you, like I said, I haven't paid much attention to the Cosby trials. I'm not one of these people who, I'm going to defend Bill Cosby because he's black or whatever. I just don't know. And I'm also not one of these people that was like, oh my God, Bill Cosby was my hero growing up. He wasn't. I watched the Cosby Show. I had a crush on Rudy. I didn't really, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care about Bill Cosby per se. To me, there's a larger issue here. And the larger issue is, if that can happen to Bill Cosby, then it has happened to a bunch of anonymous black folks who are currently languishing in prisons because of little tricks like this. God almighty. God almighty. Man. Look, guys, and then here's Donald. I think this has more to do with class and race. Donald, what class? Donald, what class is Bill Cosby in? You can't use the class argument here. Bill Cosby is 15 classes above the silly DA who pulled that nonsense stunt, bro. So it was not his class. We can completely eliminate that. The only way it would be is class is if the DA thought there was no black people should be that rich. But I'm sorry, Donald, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Wow. Unbelievable stuff. By the way, Donald, your boy James Lindsay is an absolute train wreck. Your boy James Lindsay said that America wasn't founded on racism because the Declaration of Independence says that all men are created equal. So because of that, America was never a racist country. That's James Lindsay. You made me waste an entire day listening to this guy's stuff, bro. I listened to a bunch of his shows, and send out the invite. I can almost guarantee you my firstborn, he's not going to come on and have a discussion with me. Guarantee you. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This is like what the big homie Dan said. This is like someone doing this to Oprah. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Man. Yeah, man. Terrible situation. As far as Cosby goes, there were a lot of women. And it seemed like there was an MO. And it seemed that he was doing it pretty systematically. So I'm not going to say because the DA did this horrible, in my opinion, should be criminal act. I'm not going to say this doesn't automatically absolve Bill Cosby, right? We just have to say we don't know. Unless you got DNA or something like that, we don't know. But this is why we distrust the entire apparatus. This is what we mean by a system. And it was really, really interesting because in the decision of the Supreme Court mentions that the DA occupies 3 offices. And I thought that was a really important salient point to bring up to people. You prosecutors inhabit 3 distinct and equally critical roles. They're officers of the court, advocates for victims, and administrators of justice. So when we talk about a system and things like that, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about those superstructures and what is it about American culture? Because usually people who have so much capital and money wield hella power, and usually people are intimidated from holding those people accountable. But what is it about the legal system that emboldened this DA to pull a stunt like that? Think. Unbelievable. Now here's Donald. Trying to make a false equivalency between Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein, as far as we know, was not tricked into into surrendering his rights. We have to ask the question, what was it that made that DA feel he could pull that stunt? And here's the other question. How many of the previous case that district attorney held or was part of where this was an issue? Are the courts of Pennsylvania going to go back and look at every single conviction that this DA was a part of and investigate all of those individually? Because I can almost guarantee you that there are brothers hanging out in prison right now because he pulled some stunt like that. And I'm going to watch this, because if this DA gets off and there's no criminal charges and there's no monetary penalty for this, then there needs to be some retribution, right? There's got to be some justice because this is crazy. So again, I agree with Bricktown. This calls into question all of his conviction, but you'll notice the nuance that Bricktown uses, because he doesn't say this means he's completely innocent. What he's saying is, whoa, this, any rational person now has to question it, right? Me personally, I think it's really hard for me to believe that all of these women were lying. That's hard for me to believe. But we're not litigating the Cosby case because there is no more Cosby case. The bigger issue is you've got a DA that violated the rights of an American citizen, even though that citizen was a billion times richer than him and a billion times more powerful than him. This DA used and manipulated the legal apparatus to take down one of the most powerful people in America. And if you don't see that as a serious issue, and by the way, I think, what was it? There's some Netflix special where it talked about how the police garnered this false confession out of this is a white guy. Garnered this false confession out of the white guy. We've all seen the stories, right? So when we talk about systemic racism, we're not saying that it never happens to white people. What we're saying is it happens to us at a clip that is disproportionate to our representation in society. Please see the numbers for stop and frisk. Now here's James Rutherford. We are focusing on the wrongdoings of the DA and overlooking the victims of Cosby. Wrong, James. Wrong. As Bricktown said, you don't know, and neither do I, that Cosby's victims were genuine victims. You don't know that. Secondly, it's easy for you to say that, but I've got black sons, right? So there are bigger issues here, because there are dudes that have ended up in prison over this bullshit. So no, and I'll tell you something else. I don't know if you know how prison works. Okay? But if you had to choose between getting a Molly dropped into your drink, which is a horrifically evil situation, and God help anybody if that ever happens to any of my daughters, versus being thrown in prison for a decade, losing a decade of your life because a DA massaged the Constitution to get you convicted? Nah, bro. Nah. No. I don't think so. It doesn't matter which DA did what. The act of what they did is fundamentally against the Constitution. It goes against the amendments, against the law. And I agree with James here. And I also agree with the Supreme Court, which also talked about fundamental fairness. Like, they're saying this is a fundamental fairness issue. You don't even need constitutional degrees to understand that this was a wrong thing to do. That's what they're saying. So, wow. You're right, Khomeini. We have to say Deshaun Watson, the football player, is now in a similar situation. And I'm sorry, man. These things are becoming harder and harder to litigate from 50,000 miles away. And Deshaun Watson, there are also some very curious circumstances around Deshaun Watson's accusations, because what happened was Deshaun Watson was in contract and he wanted to breach his contract, and he was going to demand to sit out for the entirety of the football season. And so he's in this highly publicized jihad with his team, and then all of a sudden he's got 50 women or something, 22, saying that he assaulted her. I don't know. Because as I was telling Sori, maybe he wanted to get out of Houston so bad because he knew he had screwed up. I don't know. What I will say, though, is that when you have DAs like that, now everything's in question, man. Horrible situation. Yeah. All right. Dan is going to jump on. We do have the ability for people to come on in Middle America and share their opinion. So Dan is going to come on in a second because he's going to give his perspective on it. Somebody asked about the victims. Have any of the victims given statements yet? I don't know, Moshmaster. It appears that this just like literally just happened. Literally just happened. So I am not certain about that. But yeah, man, it's a horrible situation. And even though I do say, like, look, there's a legality issue and a systemic issue here, we do have to say, how screwed up would this be if all those women were telling the truth and this DA got justice denied for those women because of this stupid stunt that he pulled? Like, this guy, for any stretch of the imagination, is a horrible person. Horrible. Because either A, Cosby didn't do it, and he ginned this whole thing up to get this man, an innocent man, arrested, or B, Cosby did do it, and because of this ridiculous stunt, now those women aren't going to get real justice, and then Cosby gets to go out and stunt and strut and, I was right the whole time, yada yada. Either way, both eventualities are horrible. I don't know which one is worse, to be honest with you. Unbelievable. Oh my God. Looks like I'm having some technical difficulties here. Hold on for a second here, Dan, because I do want to get Dan on, because Dan's a dad. He's a girl dad just like me, and so he's got some concerns that he wants to talk about, and I think that's pertinent. So Dan, let me drop this link here, and then we can have the conversation. But yeah, my Michelle, no, I'm not okay, because we either had a situation where an innocent man was set up and traumatized and set up as a sacrificial lamb, essentially, and denied his rights, or we have a guilty man who is able to now walk, while we've got, I don't know, 15 to 20 of our sisters who have been assaulted by this dude, and now because this idiot played a stunt, they're not going to get justice. So honestly, to be honest with you, I am sick at either one of those eventualities. Both of those eventualities to me make me really, really angry. And the other thing that people aren't thinking about is, maybe there were 2 or 3 of those girls that were not telling the truth, but there were 8 or 9 that were. There's that eventuality too. You see how many moving parts there are in this whole situation? That's why you just follow the freaking law and stop doing crazy stuff and going off the range and deciding for yourself that the guy is guilty and then massaging the legal process to get the verdict that you want. Wow. Okay, well then, if you know the system, James Rutherford, then and you know, I'm glad that you I have experienced more police brutality than most people of color. I'm not even gonna touch that, bro. I'm not even gonna touch it. We got the big homie Dan on here. So we gotta have a talk about this, because he and I are both girl dads. So we got a serious issue here. So, hey, can you hear me yet?
Yeah, dude, I can hear you.
I can hear you, and I see your beautiful face, you heathen.
What's going on, brother?
Talk to me, bro. What are your thoughts here, man?
So, I think this is absolutely huge for the simple fact of there's some pretty shitty people out there, right? So, I actually have a friend who was a really high level jiu-jitsu instructor, right? Had his own kids and all that stuff, and I've never seen someone so good with kids, right? The kid, like, all my kids loved him, you know, rah 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 rah. And they started training with him right? Someone to destroy his life was a single accusation, right, that came from his ex.
Wow.
Right? So she accused him of shit, and then the word got around, and of course you have to have over here what's called a blue card so you can work with kids, right?
Okay.
But he lost his job, right? And he was like running that dojo on his own, right? What the fuck is that noise, man?
That's noise pollution outside. It's my place. Go ahead. Keep going.
Right.
Keep going.
Yeah, he lost his job. He lost his house because the person's house that he was living in was another guy that went to jiu-jitsu who believed the bullshit, right? So he got kicked out of his house, and he could no longer train because it all went around to all these places, right? And he was a fucking black belt,
In
right?
jiu-jitsu.
In jiu-jitsu,
Which, guys,
right?
look, no disrespect to any other martial art, but getting a black belt in jiu-jitsu is probably one of the most difficult things to accomplish in the world. Like, literally
Minimum 10 years. Minimum 10 years.
Yeah, like, just for an example, there's a UFC fighter, and I forgot his name, but he knocked the guy out and he won. And obviously, you know, when you win, there's that thrill. And his sensei showed up in the middle of the ring and gave him his black belt. And he broke down crying in the middle of the ring. And he was more happy about the black belt than knocking out this guy, who had been talking a bunch of shit, by the way. And there's...
You ever seen the video of Eddie Bravo giving Joe Rogan his black belt, man?
Yeah, it's a very emotional and extremely difficult thing to accomplish. The same thing Jocko Willink has one where he's given his partner his black belt. And these are the most thugged out, masculine... They always cry.
Jocko Willink's a fucking badass, dude.
That's how difficult it is to get a black belt. Okay, so this guy worked his ass off, got himself a black belt, and his ex spread some rumor around town, and now all that work he's done is completely destroyed. Pretty much.
Yep. So this is what's happened. One accusation, right? Now, he's come good now, but it's been 7 years. And he had to change his career and, like, totally, completely change his life. And he's still, like, when he wants to go and train, the stigma's still there.
Jeez.
So it doesn't matter whether you are, you know, a celebrity or not, right? But as a man, right? If you're accused of that, man, that shit will follow you your whole fucking life, whether you are or you aren't.
It's true.
Right?
It's true.
So, for me, you know what it's like for me, dude? I won't even let other young girls stay at my house, like, to sleep over with my daughter, because I ain't risking that shit.
Hell no.
Ain't no fucking way.
Hell no.
Like,
and it has to... Look, guys, we have to say it. All of us, none of us want... women to be hurt. Dan and I can speak for my brother because this is my brother. If we saw a woman being assaulted, we'd probably end up in prison. Let's say it that way. But at the same time, I do think that what DJ just said is true. This is a form of murder. Right?
Oh, 100%.
It's called character what? Assassination.
Character assassination. Yeah.
So, and the other thing is, there's a bunch of issues here. One, the DA has to be held accountable, but there's got to be some sort of societal and legal ramification for people who make false accusations. There has to be. Because otherwise, I'll say this: the only way you can legitimately save an authentic Me Too movement is if you penalize people severely for making false accusations. That's the only way you can truly preserve it. Because now all of us are looking at this like, well, wait a second. You see what I'm saying? Like, look, man, I know the numbers. I know women don't randomly lie about it, but we've got multiple situations where that's happened. Now, I'm talking about separate issues here. I'm addressing what Dan brought up because, like I said, man, I default to the woman, and I'm biased toward everybody. Know I'm biased. And I don't even pretend to be objective. But this guy worked his ass off, great with kids. I know how Dan, the only person that I know that loves and is as protective of his kids as I am is Dan. And Dan is saying this dude was good with kids. Okay, If he's good with the kids, I trust my daughter in that guy's presence if Dan is good with the kids. This is the guy that got his entire life ruined. The guy can't even take the fucking train, and it's his ex-wife. People can't sit and think, well, maybe she's got a vested interest in making up some crazy shit about him. Man. This is dirty, bro.
It is.
The
And
whole thing is dirty
the other thing
all
is,
around.
bro, this bitch, right? Sorry, I don't normally talk to women, but she is actually a bitch, dude. Anyway, she
And just real quick,
right?
James McClellan, same thing. Hell no, I don't either. I always made sure my ex-wife watched the kids and spent my time in the yard or out and about. There we go. Dudes know, man. We know.
You can't put yourself in the situation, man. You just can't. But yeah, so this bitch, man, that house that they were staying in, right, which was another guy's from Jiu-Jitsu's house, she smashed that house up before she left, man, and she poisoned his motherfucking dog.
And
Like, poisoned his dog, man. Killed his dog.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. Here's James Rutherford. And by the way, James Rutherford, JR is my brother. You seem to expect the system to be ran and controlled by good people. Actually, I don't, because I'm a big believer in original sin. James, you're just now getting introduced to me, but trust me, bro. No, I don't expect the system to be controlled by good people, because I don't believe there are any good people, except for Jesus of Nazareth. But what I do expect, here's what I do expect, though, is that when we have a glaring flaw, whether it's women being able to weaponize the real pain of the millions of women that have been violated, or whether it's a DA that weaponizes his understanding of the law and the minutia of the law to drudge up a conviction. When we see those flaws, they have to be addressed. We can't just say, well, people are sinners. Like, we got to address it and fix it for the cause of justice. Because like I said, this DA has just severely bastardized justice for either Bill Cosby, who was innocent and then was treated as a guilty person, or the women who were telling the truth, who were truly assaulted, and now their assaulter gets to go free and strut about in front of the camera and laugh and all this other jazz because he got off on a technicality. Either way, that DA at minimum needs to be fired. And secondly, there's got to be some sort of criminal prosecution for this miscarriage of justice. Holy shit.
So did I get something twisted here, right? So I saw with the deal that he made with the first DA, right? Was it the deal that he made with the previous DA and then the new one was the one that prosecuted?
No, it appears that, and you know, shout out to Ben Webb, because Ben Webb got us the court documents, the Supreme Court decision. He had it in like 2 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it looks like what happened was the DA brought him in and said, look, this is an accusation. You're going to be out of here in about 5-10 minutes. You know, just give us a statement. You don't have to invoke the fifth or anything. Just give us a statement. We're not going to prosecute it, and then we'll process it. You'll be out of here tomorrow. It'll end up on TMZ, and, you know, go eat some Jell-O or whatever. Right? Like, that's what happened. So he didn't invoke the fifth. He didn't call his lawyer. And then the DA said, gotcha. I never signed anything. There was nothing on paper. So we're going to prosecute you now. It's like unbelievable.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, see, I thought there were two separate DAs. I thought that was the way they'd be able to weasel out of it.
Yeah.
Is that the original DA was the one that made the deal, and the second one was the one that prosecuted.
You may be right, because I think somebody's saying something like, yeah, right. Donald was saying a similar thing. Did the DA know about the agreement since it was not written down? Now, I will say, I've interacted with our state's DA, because me and my crew, we got in a major jihad with them and almost ended up in the Supreme Court. I will say that those guys talk to each other a lot, right? Like, they hand off, you know, and a lot of times the DA that's going to be taking over will sit in on a deposition so that they're completely conversant with the facts. So I sat in a 4-hour deposition. Is pretty much, I had my lawyer there, but I couldn't appeal to my lawyer. I had to answer the, you know, all the questions and such. And both of the DAs were there and a bunch of other people. So I get it. Like, maybe the other DA didn't know and they could weasel out of it that way. But I think that those Supreme Court judges know how it normally goes, and that's not a good enough excuse. But either way, somebody screwed up, and a termination of employment. I don't know, Dan. Because honestly, bro, Trump is gonna say something probably in the next 36 hours. We're all gonna jump on that and forget about it. Because I don't know this.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, I've already forgotten the DA's name and all the rest of it. And a lot of times I just think a lot of times they're like, let's just wait and let the furor die down. And everything will be okay. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a horrible, horrible situation, man. And I feel honestly, I'm legit sick at the idea. So one thing I hate, man, is that when genuinely bad people get away with something because of the technicality of the law, and we have to let them get away with it.
The shit thing is that makes it hard. It makes me feel two ways about it, is because it looks like this guy's a scumbag, right? Right. But because of this miscarriage of justice, it shows how much good people are actually getting screwed, right? So yes, it's good that he's been released in one way, because they're showing that, okay, maybe there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel for the good people that have been screwed.
Sure.
But also, a guy that looks like he's a fucking scumbag is now out.
Again, there were so many women that it wasn't like there's 2 or 3 of them like had a court case, but there were multiple women that came out and described pretty much. And again, bro, I didn't look at it. Okay, so I'm just telling you, this is not one of those things where I have a bunch of facts and all the rest of it. All I can tell you is that for me, because there were so many of them, and because they were all so consistent in the way they described what happened, I just took the mountain of that and said, there's no way all those girls align like that. I just don't think that they do that. What do you have to gain? It wasn't even a civil suit. It was a criminal suit. They weren't suing him. So to me, I think you're right, bro. It's like, by all intents and purposes, what are the odds? Bricktown is saying there are 80, subhanAllah. What are the odds that all of those girls were lying? Come on. Like,
by all intents, there's a few that jumped on the bandwagon. But,
yeah, for all intents and purposes, man, they pretty much probably let a guilty guy who destroyed the lives of a bunch of girls. I'm saying probably. God forgive me for even speculating on it. Horrible. I'm gonna let you have the last word. I gotta jump out of here because we gotta do some recording on the other channel. What do you got, big homie Dan?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is, the biggest thing for me to take away from this is people really need to think before they, just spout shit. Be real careful about what you say and do, because it can have some pretty fucking profound effects on people's lives. You know what I mean? And good people. And I mean, on this planet, man, bad shit happens to good people every fucking day. Yeah. So you need to be a bit more cautious on
you have to.
Because I mean, one thing I'll say, like, the biggest thing for me is, which I see all the time, man, is like women using their kids as pawns to get the ex to do what they want them to do. When there's a separation in the home, right? They use the kids as weapons.
Facts.
And it's fucking terrible, man. And the law, 100%, like, I don't know what it's like in America. I can't speak to that, but the law is so catered to women in Australia that 90% of the time the kids go to the mum.
It's the same in America.
Yeah. And without the father ever even having a look in, it's just straight up. Yep, you're now every second weekend dad.
You're just a check. We definitely need, and I'm saying this as a guy on the other side of this, right? Because Sori's divorced and we've got Prime, but that was after a bunch of negotiations and discussions and things of that nature. But when we were, we lawyered up and we had to go to war and all that, but our lawyer was pretty confident because Sori's a woman. But look. There are just so many moving parts to this story. I thought it was going to be a 2-minute discussion because we really didn't know much, but there's a lot of angles to this. The angle that you brought up is massive, and it was a really interesting angle, right? Because you're a father who has kids who lost a very good male mentor because of that BS. And the other, that there's so many things, like having positive male role models is so important for men and women, especially outside of dad, because you're the type of dad that's such a good dad that they're going to be like, yeah, but that's dad, like he's a superhero, everybody else sucks. So it's so important to expose kids to a good, safe, positive role model, but those are so hard to find, and even harder for our trust to be won, right?
Look at teachers, man. In Australia, dude, less than 20% of teachers in primary school, which is like elementary school,
Yeah.
right, it's less than 20% because of this same reason.
Yeah.
All these accusations that get thrown around and shit to them all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you're a male grade school teacher, why?
Yeah. And I wanna land a plane on this because Shis Percy made a really good observation. Cosby's been doing these unspeakable things to women since the 1950s. Again, I don't know, but again, the weight of evidence, who knows? This is sick. Now watch this. They would rather go after people like Julian Assange. Correct. Did Julian Assange sexually assault a bunch of women? Has he even been accused of being sexually assaulting 50 women or whatever? No. And all of us probably, if there was an accusation against Julian Assange for that, none of us would believe it for obvious reasons. But this dude right now is in some prison somewhere in some black site getting tortured to death. Meanwhile, wow, man, I don't know, bro. I'm having a hard time with this, man. I'm having a real hard time with this. Holy moly.
There's a lot to unpack with it, man. There really is. Like,
Yeah.
It looks like some small superficial thing, but it's not. Like, this can have profound ramifications
Facts.
on both sides.
Facts.
Like,
And again, James McClellan is on fire today. Think of the motivation of the DA. He knows he stands to build his career tremendously off of this case. He doesn't have to care whether Cosby is guilty or not. He only had to get a guilty verdict. Correct. And if Cosby is genuinely guilty, which I think he probably is, he didn't care about those girls either. He didn't think to himself, well, what if I get caught this time? Think about that. He pulled that bullshit stunt, and he didn't even think to himself, man, this is a high-profile case. If I get caught, I am definitely going to get smoked in the media. He wasn't worried about it. You know what that tells me? That tells me homeboy is really comfortable doing that shit. That's what that tells me. Because let me tell you something. I was in an organization, and one of the things that we had to do for selection was to break the law, basically. Okay? So, I'm from the Bronx. So this particular thing that we're supposed to do, I had done it before. So I was calm as a lamb. The other guy, he couldn't get the pick of the thing. He was scared to death. And I could tell. It's like, okay, this is your first time. Just give me the thing, because you're gonna get us both booted here, and I've worked my whole life for this. So like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was nervous. He was scared to do it. I was completely comfortable. Why was that, DA? It just seems to me homeboy was really comfortable, bro. Like he's got experience doing this shit to people. And now it's like,
100%, and that is a scary thought.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, look, there's probably a lot of brothers in that prison, but I guarantee there's a bunch of white dudes in that prison too. Because although everybody knows how I am with the race issue, I do believe, and this has something to do with my Marxism, that it's also a class issue. So, you know what that tells me?
100%.
I guarantee you there's like 48, 50, maybe 100 white dudes in that prison around that area on bullshit charges because of this DA. That's not right, bro. I don't care what color you are. That's not right. And then these guys' reputations are ruined. So good luck finding a job. Like, okay, you did your time, right?
Prison's a big business, man.
You did your time. You paid your debt to society, right, bro? So I say, you know what? Yeah, you got an F on your thing, but you know, maybe we'll give you a shot. Let me see what this is for. Holy shit, sexual assault. Who's gonna hire him? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, I used to be a hired manager. The guy's a drug dealer or whatever. I was like, okay, I'll give you a shot. But anything sexual, you're out. You're out. I'm not even going to look at you. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to look at you. Nothing. You're out. And that's how these guys are going to get treated. It's wrong. It's wrong, guys. We can't do this to people. I don't care what race they are. I don't care what the supposed crime is. I don't care. Right is right. Wrong is wrong. Holy shit. Anyway, love your neighbor. Dan.
Take care of yourself, guys.
Middle America.
We are the media.
Till next